Okay, good evening. Welcome back. We are now starting on. Yep. We are now ready to begin episode number 13 of Key to Redemption. This is on this week's parsha, Parshas Pinchas. Fascinating talk, and it throws a whole different angle to. It's in sync with everything we've been talking about, but yet at the same time opens up a whole new dimension in our preparation to prepare ourselves and the world for the up and coming redemption. Okay, so in this one, the name of it is called Living in the Moment. It's amazing what the Rebbe is teaching over here. How we're supposed to be completely immersed, even in our work that we do while we're still seconds before the complete redemption, which it's always possible that at times, because we are so yearning, here's the danger, because we are so yearning and so excited about what is to come, that we become a little bit negligent about the here and the now, about the people around us, about the things we need to do, about the improvements we can make right now in our place where we live, even if we're living in the other end of the world, not in the land of Israel. Or we're not, the improvements, we can alleviate some of the hardships for people during the time of the exile. But we're thinking so much that there's no more problems because we are so tapped into the futuristic, especially after the class that we just learned in episode 12, how we ought to be past already the darkness of exile completely, and therefore so tuned into the future redemption that we don't even see the redemption as a fixing of the darkness, all that we learned in chapter 12. And here the Rebbe turns around completely and takes us to the other end of it all, that how much every moment and second that we have now should not be seen just as a fleeting moment, that therefore not that important, but we should completely immerse ourselves into everything that we're doing, fully present and fully engaged, as if there's nothing happening after this, just this moment. And that itself is the redemption. Wow. So let's see how the Rebbe develops this. It's basically completely mind-blowing new insight that we did not study till now. So the Rebbe begins the talk again, Parshas Pinchas, in the year 1991. It came out on the 24th day of Tammuz. He says one of the novelties of this parsha is the inheritance and the division of the land of Israel to all the tribes and to every single person. Okay, so but to the Rebbe, it's always like, if you're studying Torah, it's got to be real. So the question then becomes, like, what's this message? Dividing the land to the tribes. To me right now, okay? So the first thing the Rebbe says, what's the message 3,500 years later to our generation? Well, Israel was divided back then to the tribes, and the Torah gives you the method of how it was divided. Well, we're going right back into the land of Israel very soon. Although Israel is in Jewish hands right now, the world is contesting it, but that doesn't make a difference. It is in Jewish hands right now. But there's still huge swaths of land that are problematic, meaning that we're not having an easy time with them. Judea, Samaria, and various other places. Plus, as we discussed in the previous class, God promised Abraham, not in the previous class, but in the one 2 days ago, last night actually, the one that we did on the Parsha My Life class, the one I called the Orach Chaim, the 15th of Tammuz, Mashiach and the Orach Chaim. Over there we discussed that God promised Abraham the land of 10 nations, and we did not yet conquer the land of 10 nations. So the land of Israel is going to expand very much the moment the redemption is completely here. And in that case, we're going to again divide the land, and then it's going to be divided, as we learned earlier, into 13 parts. So the mitzvah of dividing the land is a very apropos and timely commandment right now, because any second we might be going into the land, and we should be ready for another division. So we should have our minds fixed on this idea. So it's actually a very appropriate study. It fits very well to the times that we're living. So the Rebbe says, yeah, that's true. That the study of how it can be applied to our lives is because we are anticipating any moment that we're going to divide the land of Israel now in its greatest division ever, its greatest conquest ever of the land of Israel. However, the Rebbe says, well, that's the way we apply it in a second from now, or in 2 minutes from now, whatever, when the redemption is fully going to reveal itself, and which we should be expecting any moment. But meanwhile, this is so beautiful. Only the Rebbe, I'm telling you, I don't know how much you studied other books. Only the Rebbe deals with questions like this. These are types of problems that no one even thought about. You have millions of rabbis in the Jewish people. No one even thought of the problems the Rebbe thinks about. What's the Rebbe's problem? The Rebbe says, but meanwhile, there's a half a second until Mashiach comes, until the full redemption is manifest. So we're here right now. What's my inspiration? What do I take from dividing the land now when I don't have a land to divide right now? I don't have a land to conquer right now. I'm living in San Francisco. I'm living in Switzerland. What is my division of the land of Israel? How does this apply to me today? What does this mean to me, to every student who is studying the Torah in any place in the world, when we're not yet at the standing together with millions of Jews waiting for the land to be apportioned or assigned to every single person? So what is my inspiration from this? What does this say to me today? Since the Torah is eternal, and eternal means it applies to all times, so it can't be just applying about a time in the future. It has to be relevant at all times. So again, the Rebbe's question is, what's the relevance a second before the redemption? Again, he's assuming Mashiach is going to come in a second. But even for this 1 second, we need to know, what does this mean? And the answer is that in addition to taking possession of the land of Israel, the Rebbe brings a story from his great-grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, that a Jew once came to him with asking permission and a blessing for him to move to the land of Israel. This is back in the early 1800s. And this Chassid wanted to go up to the land of Israel. And the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, at that time told him, why do you have to go to Israel? Make over here Eretz Yisrael. Make here the land of Israel. Make your own home wherever you're living. You're living in Ukraine, you're living in Moldavia, you're living in Russia. That's where the person was probably living, somewhere over there. The Rebbe said, instead of going to Israel, make Israel where you are. In other words, plant so much holiness around you, influence your environment, inspire people, make your home and your environment and your community so Jewish and so divine conscious that it's going to be the land of Israel. In the words of the Tzemach Tzedek in Yiddish, he said to him, Mach da Eretz Yisrael, make Israel over here. So what does that mean? Was the Tzemach Tzedek making a joke? He wasn't humorous. He was talking seriously. He says, ultimately, we know that our job is to sanctify all of creation. And the reason the Jewish people have been dispersed in the exile is so that they can learn Torah and do mitzvahs in the four corners of the earth. And by doing that, they sanctify the earth everywhere. So much so that there is a midrash that tells us, or a passage in the Talmud, that the land of Israel is going to expand, that Jerusalem is going to expand throughout the entire land of Israel, and Israel is going to expand throughout the entire world. What does that mean? That means the spirituality, the holiness of Israel will be far past the borders. Israel without borders, that's the idea. Okay, that was the teaching. So the question, so based on that idea that we have to make here the land of Israel, so the division of the land is not only geographically in the land of Israel, the mitzvah to take possession of the land and exactly how it needs to be done could be instructions even for a Jew who's living in San Francisco. Because even in San Francisco, or if they're living in Mississippi, or wherever place they're living, the person has a mitzvah to make that land, to sanctify his or her environment and make it the land of Israel. It means take possession of the land. However, that's the idea. So the Rebbe asks the question, and that you can do a second before the redemption is here. That's your responsibility every moment. The question he asks, we need to understand, what does that mean to make Israel, to make here Israel, when we know that halachically that cannot be? Over here is not Israel. So much so that there are so many commandments that one cannot fulfill outside of the land of Israel. You can sit there and bang your head in the wall for as long as you want and cry out, this is Israel, and it's not Israel halachically. You may not do certain commandments outside of the land of Israel. There's the mitzvah of the sabbatical year, and that there's holiness to the land and to the fruits and all that doesn't apply outside of the land of Israel. And so other mitzvot, if you want to bring from Australia wheat to the temple, let's say the temple is standing, and you want to bring us from Australia wheat or from America, from the Midwest, where all the wheat grows, and you want to bring barley for the special barley offering on the second day of Passover of Pesach, you can't. And you can say, what are you talking about? I made over here Israel. What are you talking about? I fulfilled what the Tzemach Tzedek said, make over here Israel. So it's Israel. They would say, excuse me, it's not Israel. So that's halacha. If that's the case, what does it mean then that make over here Israel? And the Rebbe says that you might say, you might argue, but I understand. But being that as Jews, we are by divine decree, we are in the diaspora, and we're spread throughout the world, and we cannot go to the land of Israel. I'm talking about throughout the long exile 1,000 years ago, where Jews wish they can go to the land of Israel. They couldn't go to the land of Israel. And they had no idea when the redemption was coming. And it could be 1,000 years later. So in their situation, you can say, okay, so do your best to make your environment as Israel-like as you can. It's not going to be perfect Israel, but let it be, let it have a sniff, a little scent of Israel, or something of its holiness, by sublimating it, do whatever you can. The Rebbe says, maybe I get that. But when we are talking about now, in 1990, again, he's talking 1990, and to us it would be in 2023, in 57, 83, when we are hoping and awaiting and expecting the redemption to happen literally any second, and we're standing at the threshold of the redemption, as been explained in the previous talks. If that's the case, and we are waiting to go to Israel, and we're late, we're meaning, and what does that mean? We're waiting to leave the countries where we're living, and we want to relocate to the land of Israel. If that's the case, what does it mean, make over here Israel? 3 times a day, the Rebbe says, we stand by the Amida when we're talking face to face with God, and we're being truthful and honest, and we're expressing our deepest yearning, return us to the land of Israel. And now you're telling me what? Make here Israel? Okay, if I'm making here Israel, but aren't we going there? And we're told we're supposed to want to go there. So why do we have to go there if we can make it over here? Obviously, there is very special. So what would mean over here, make over here Israel? And especially if I know that I'm going to leave over here any moment. So let's say, okay, you know what? Yeah. Meanwhile, it's not up to me. I'm waiting for the sound of the shofar. I'm waiting for Mashiach to snap his fingers. I'm waiting for God to lift up, to do the big miracles of the redemption. Meanwhile, what am I supposed to do? Okay, so I'm going to make over energy. Can we do it? With how much? If I understand that at least I'm going to be here for another 300 years, and I'm making something holy for myself, for my children, for my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren, so they should be able to live in a holy Jewish environment. Okay, I get it. But if you're expecting to leave in a moment, so why would you pay any attention or invest in this project when you're relocating, when you're leaving? So all of this will be explained with a brilliant explanation in this week's parsha. We start chapter 2. In this week's parsha, it talks about the dividing of the land of Israel, the method of what they used to divide the land of Israel. So it says in chapter 26, Perek Chavav, verse 56, or Nun Vav, We're also verse 54. Oh, here it's talking about the division of the land. So the Torah says like this: the land of Israel was divided through a lottery. A lottery for who? A lottery for the tribes. That means there were 12 tribes. 12 tribes, each one was allotted a portion in the land. How did they know which portion they're getting? They cast lots. The way the lots were cast was there were two boxes. In one box, there was, let's say, like two wooden chests. In these boxes, there were individual, like cards, or I think they were like made out of wood or something. And these wooden pieces had each one written, inscribed in it, a name of one of the tribes. So one of them had Ruvain, the other one had engraved in it Shimon, and so on and so forth. You had 12 of those in one box. Then you had another box on the right parallel on the other side, in which the land of Israel, portion A, portion B, was divided into 12 portions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe there was even actually a carved out map of it. I'm not sure. Again, I'm just speculating. But maybe it said the borders, east, the northeast of Israel, next to the Kinneret River, the plains in the middle. This part, I'm just throwing out whatever. But it was a description of 12 different portions. Like if you would have over here dividing, the states, you would say this is Nebraska, and this is New Mexico, and this is Louisiana, and so on and so on. The provinces were each one described on a different one. Now, the leaders of each, I think the way it happened was that the leader, the appointed one of each tribe, would step up in front of the box, and he was told to put one hand into one box, which is to pick out one of the lots, and pick out one of the lotteries which had the portions, and he would pick them up. Now, first of all, this whole thing could be a terrible mess. Why can it be a terrible mess? Because if I'm, let's say, the representative of Shevet Shimon, and I'm walking over to a box and I'm pulling out one and one, I might start with the tribes. I might pull out a lottery from that says Shevet Usher. That doesn't feel comfortable. I'm from Shevet Shimon, and I'm pulling out what Usher and the portion that goes to Usher. So the first miracle that happened was that each one that came and pulled out, they pulled out actually, randomly, without trying, each one pulled out actually. You can see clearly it was by the hand of God. But the way it was, again, assigned is if Reuven came and he pulled out one, and then by Reuven pulled out from the other one, it came out lot 6. So that means Reuven is going to get the sixth portion of the land of Israel. God says it has to be done only by a lottery and not in any other way. Okay. But the sages tell us, derive it from the verses. Would you imagine that, this can cause some people to get a little upset. We were unfortunate. They got a better lottery. How come we picked this? You'll say, well, it's lottery. Lottery's a lottery. You're leaving it up to chance, or you're leaving it up by divine providence. So in order for people to realize, no, that this is accurate, it's not some just mumble jumble. Elazar, who was the high priest, he's the son of Aaron. Remember, Aaron had passed away already in Parshas Chukas last week in the Torah portion. At the end of the 40 years, was told to go up on the mountain, and he passed away. So his son was now anointed to be on his behalf the second high priest of the Jewish people, and he wore the breastplate. He was dressed in all the priestly clothing, including the breastplate that only the high priest wore, which we know that it had inside it, the folds of the breastplate, there was a parchment with God's name in it, which kind of made the breastplate have a divine presence in it, and therefore God can speak through it. So how did God speak through it? So many times when Jews were in a dilemma, if they should do something or not, they had a direct place where they can make a phone call to God and ask him. Where was that? The high priest on his chest. Because there were special stones on it, where all the stones had the names, precious gems, that the stones had the names of the tribes engraved on it. If you take the names of the tribes, plus Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's, and it says also Shiftei Kav, the tribes of God, you have an ensemble of all the letters of the Aleph Beis, all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So when we had to ask a question, this went on for 800 years, Jews had this. Whenever there was a serious question, they wanted to know if they should go to war or not, or whatever, and they wanted to hear God's opinion, they would come and they would stand behind the high priest. The person would ask the question, and the high priest would look down, and the letters would jot out. The letters were engraved. The letters would stick out, and he would basically see a bunch of letters. And then God gave him the inspiration, the divine inspiration, to be able to scrabble those letters together. Like when you play Scrabble, you put together words, to put them together to give a message. And he would be able to read it. This was a special, very high communication that we had a direct line to God. So at the time when they were dividing the land of Israel, Elazar, the high priest, stood over there in front of the two boxes while every single tribe stepped up to pick up the two lots. And he would announce before the leader of the tribe came to pull out those two lotteries, he announced and he said, Shimon is coming, okay. When Shimon is going to come and take a lottery, this is what he said. Shimon is going to come out. It's going to come up on his right hand, I think, whichever hand he's using for the thing. He's going to pull out the Shimon block, and zone number 7 is going to come out with it. How did he know that? Through the Urim V'Tumim and through divine inspiration. He announced it. So they can hear clearly that this is a divine prophecy that's coming through the high priest. The moment after he made this announcement, the person would come and he would pick, and exactly as he said would happen, happened. And Shimon, even though there were 12 pieces over there, pulled out the Shimon lot. And on the other hand, he pulled out lot number 7, exactly as was predicted by the high priest. So now everybody sees that this is not just, a guy playing monkey business. He's pulling out, he cheated, he looked. No. This is working in accordance to the prophecy that just happened. So now it was kind of validated. So the sages tell us it was more than that. That itself was insufficient. There was an extra miracle that happened. And this is a freaky miracle. What happens was, after everybody watched him pull out, and it was all confirmed, everything is great. And I'm thinking, I don't know this, but I'm thinking that perhaps, in order that the last tribe shouldn't come and just pick out the last one that was there, and that would be kind of a little anticlimactic, he's coming, everybody knows that lot number 12 is left, and the last tribe is left. I don't know, whoever it was, done is coming to pick up, and it's all his little remnant. He's not even selecting from any choice. It's possible that everybody threw their lots back in. So every person picked out from all 12. It could have made a problem that you're going to get double. Again, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking that that's probably what it was. I didn't see anything on it for sure. Maybe someone can verify if it was that way. But that's where I would think it probably happened. They threw the lots in, so every single person picked out 1 out of 12. 1 out of 12 out of this box and 1 out of 12 in this box. But in addition to all of this, in order to verify it very strongly, the miracle that happened was that suddenly the lotteries themselves, the blocks themselves, spoke up. And the block that was zone number 7 announced, I, the portion of zone number 7 in the land of Israel, I have fallen to Shimon. And everybody, and the lights were buzzing and everybody was clapping. There was an announcement coming from the lottery itself. Last week in the Torah portion in Parshas Balak, we learned the miracle. What was the miracle we learned last week, Parshas Balak? That a donkey was talking. The donkey opened its mouth and spoke to Bilam and said, why are you beating me? And that's like the big miracle, the talking donkey. Here you have a talking piece of wood. I think they were made out of wood. A piece of wood spoke up. And when after the tribe of Zevulun picked up, The lottery spoke up and said, the lottery, the portion number, I don't know, let's say Zvulun has portion number 11. I came up for Zvulun. So by that time they were done the lottery, even Jewish people who love to complain weren't complaining anymore. No one can argue if the lottery was fair. I mean, obviously you could take it up with God if you don't like where God is giving you want to fight, that's a different story. But the question, if this was what God has selected for each tribe, no questions at all. That's what it says. And Rashi brings it, and so it says in the Midrash, and so on and so forth. And this is all because it says in the verse, where do the sages derive it from? It says, Al pi hagoro, yechalek haaretz. According to the lottery, the land should be divided. The words that are used is not al yedei hagoro, through the lottery. It says al pi hagoro. Al pi hagoro means by the mouth of the goro. Now, even though loosely translated, al pi can mean through, doesn't mean literally the mouth. But the sages say no, literally. It means by the mouth of the lottery. The lottery itself spoke. So imagine winning today I saw at the gas station over there, $545 million lottery ticket. And you won the lottery, and you come into the lottery, you're coming into the lottery office and you want to claim your prize. And they want to make sure that you did not steal this lottery ticket from anyone else, or you did not, you didn't steal it, or it wasn't dropped and you found it, or whatever. Not dropped and found it is probably yours, but if you stole it, it's a problem. So imagine if you come and then the lottery ticket itself starts talking. Pretty cool. Say, no, I was bought by so-and-so, and he bought self-talking lottery ticket. But now it was a clear indication, it's great, it's done. The Rebbe asks the question, why the bother? God can do really super cool things, but why would God do things that are unnecessary? Seems like the lottery was validated pretty solidly even before the Goral itself was making the announcement. Why? Because the high priest, as mentioned earlier, had already predicted, based on a divine prophecy, which one was going to fall with which one, and the corresponding portion to the corresponding tribe. And that's actually what happened when he pulled his hand. It could have been any of the others, and it came exactly like the high priest predicted. So it was already validated. Now we understand there was an extra measure of validation, but it's unnecessary, but kind of sufficient. Everybody can go home and sleep calmly. By the tribe, by the high priest's prediction, and it was done. It wasn't done in a closed room. It was done in front of everybody. Everybody could see what was happening. If that's the case, why was it necessary to do this extra miracle? And we know as much as possible. There's a rule the sages tell us: God only does miracles when it's absolutely necessary. Generally, he loves to run things as smoothly as we can within the natural order. So why did Hashem do this miracle? It's a really good question. To answer the question, again, soon we're going to come to the depth, the incredible teaching over here. What does this mean in our lives? Mind-blowing teaching. But before that, we're first going to work out the logistics of the lottery from a plain simple level of understanding. So the Rebbe says the reason why it happened was because when God instructed that they should divide the land based on a lottery, that the lottery should be the method, that the land should be divided. That it should be done based on a lottery. The verse the Torah uses is Ach begoro yechalek haaretz. Ach begoro means exclusively through a lottery, which means that the full division of the land has to happen solely with a lottery, not through any other intervention, meaning there shouldn't be any other element only with the lottery. Because the emphasis is only with the lottery, it has to be pure lottery. Therefore, the Rebbe says like this: if after you make the lottery, you're still questioning, someone is questioning the validity of the lottery. You did a lottery. And someone is questioning the validity, they're not sure, they're walking away and they're not so happy. And in order to certify the lottery, we will get it certified. But how are we getting certified? We're calling the high priest, and the high priest is certifying it. Not later. He certified it actually earlier. But the fact that we're relying on the high priest's prophecy to certify the lottery, that means that there is something other than the lottery that is confirming each portion to each place, to each tribe. Because ultimately, we need to consult something other than the lottery. Because after the lottery is done, we're still questioning. Oh, why are we not questioning? Because the high priest has certified it. How did he certify it? By divine inspiration. Fine. It's a perfect certification. But the certification is coming not through the lottery itself, it's coming from outside of the lottery. That would be a slight blemish in when God said that the lottery alone should be the deciding factor of how each part, because you're using something other than the lottery. True, you're dividing based on the lottery, but the certification of the lottery is coming from outside the lottery. Oh, so there's not exclusively only the lottery. In order for it to be completely only the lottery, the Rebbe says, genius answer. The Rebbe says, God made that the lottery should certify itself. The lottery spoke. So the very lottery itself was foolproof. The lottery itself was a talking lottery, which was a miracle. And everybody saw that the lottery was in accordance to God's will without needing anything else. Now the question is, so why did we need a Lazar to certify it, the high priest to certify? That's a side question. But we are in complete compliance to the fullest measure of God's instructions, that the deciding factor of who gets which part of the land of Israel should be the lottery and nothing other than the lottery. So for that reason, it was, sorry, there's a lot of noise. This is all July 4th celebrations in the background. In any case, the certification of the lottery had to be from the lottery and nothing else. A proof to this idea. This is the Rebbe's own insight, but the Rebbe proves it from a Rashbam. The Rashbam was a grandson of Rashi, and in Tractate the Baba Basra, which is one of the tractates of the Talmud, there is a commentary over there. Rashi, for whatever reason, Rashi's commentary on Baba Basra did not arrive to us, and his grandson filled in the blanks with his own commentary. He was called the Rashbam. Anyways, over there, where in the Talmud discusses the lottery, the Rashbam writes, he asks the question, why did you need two boxes? Why do you need one box with the names of the tribes and one box with the names of the portions? You can make it far more simpler. Have one box with all the portions, and each leader of each tribe comes and pulls out one. That's a lottery. It's good. If you're from tribe of Reuven, you're going to pull it out. Whichever one you're pulling out, that's the one that's assigned to you. What do you need that he pulls out a lottery over here and pulls it? So the Rashbam says, the reason it was necessary there should be two boxes is because it says, same idea. It says ach begorol, only with the lottery. And over here, it's not only with the lottery, because the announcer had to say, okay, Reuven is coming up now, and which one is Reuven going to take? Reuven picks up lot number 6. So Reuven gets lot number 6. So there is something, it's halfway from the lottery, and half is the announcer connecting the pick, the one who's picking, to that portion. However, if the announcer doesn't have to say anything. Imagine if it was just silence. He went and he picked it up. Again, the high priest announced earlier, but that's a separate thing. The lottery itself, quiet, silence, nothing is necessary. He picks up one of them and he holds it up. It says Ruvain. He picks up the other one. It says lot number 6. That's it. No one has to say anything. Everybody knows 6 goes together. The lottery itself decided it. So that's what the Rashbam explains why you needed 2 boxes. So the Rebbe is taking it further. If that's the case, we also understand why the lottery needed to speak. Because true, that itself would have already created that the division of the land was based on the lottery, fine, and only the lottery. No one else is assisting. Nothing else is contributing to it. However, if in order to certify it, we still have to go outside of the lottery and reach whatever other certification, it's still, as we spoke earlier, it's still deficient. There's still something missing. In order for the lottery to be completely done in all of its perfection, without needing to rely on anything else, God added an extra miracle that the lottery itself spoke. So the certification came from the lottery. Brilliant answer. I love it, right? Now we continue. But the Rebbe challenges his own answer and he says, but I don't get it. I understand the halachic requirement, but let's understand, why would the Torah require that? Why would there be a request from the Torah that it should be only the lottery, and the lottery should be fully? Now, the fact that God chose the method of dividing the land through a lottery, okay, first of all, we can say it's simply logic. In order that people should not have any, imagine they're dividing the land based on the elders sitting down and looking at each tribe and saying, what are the needs of your tribe? Let's try to find you the best land that fits the needs of your tribe. If that would have been, and by the way, that's the way it really came out. God had already created that these different portions of the land each one fit that particular tribe, the needs of the tribe best. It was already preordained that way by Hashem, when Hashem created the world and created the land of Israel and created the humans that are going to be on the different tribes with their different characteristics. So it was a perfect match. But imagine if figuring that out would not have come through the lottery, it would have been through the minds of the Sanhedrin. What would have happened? There could have always been some complainers and some people evaluated. You gave us an inferior land. We would have been better with their land. I like the lakeside area. I don't like this. This is a mountainous area. I'm not comfortable with it. This is in a valley. It is too much. It's too hot over here. It's too cold over here. It's too wet over here. It's too dry over here. Everybody would have complaints. So God says, it's a lottery. Which means it's outside of any reason and logic. It's up to God. God is the one who's giving us the land. Take it or leave it. But this is what God is giving you. Okay, we can understand. But the Rebbe is saying, why did it have to be so perfect? The lottery had to be perfect that it certified itself. And what's the question? Every mitzvah is supposed to be perfect. This is a mitzvah. So when we take the mitzvah of the 4 species of fruit, which we take on Sukkot, we lift them up and shake them right before. So we know that everybody tries to get the most perfect of them. You spend a lot of money. An esrog, you can buy cheap. You can buy a $20, $30 esrog. People spend $100, $150, $200, $300. People even buy a esrog, a fruit they're going to use to do a mitzvah. You want to make sure it doesn't even have a tiny blemish. It's clean. It's perfect. Matzah, Pesach, Passover by night, we eat matzah. You can get cheap matzah, but if you want to get finer matzah that was more, it was done with more extra caution, and they you can make matzah. You can make matzah. There's different levels of watching it and making sure it's done on the highest standards. So those matzahs cost more, and people spend money on this. And it's the best spent money you can do, because it's spending money on God's mitzvahs. So we can say that that's what the goal. However, the Rebbe said this mitzvah is not a regular mitzvah, meaning the mitzvah is not an end to itself. The mitzvah of dividing the land of Israel through a lottery is a means to an end. The objective is not a lottery. The objective is the division of the land of Israel. How are you going to divide the land? Through a lottery. Since the lottery is only a means to an end, it's not an end to itself. So why would we pay so much attention to this lottery to make the lottery so perfect from every angle? It's not even about a lottery. Let me rephrase it. If one of the 613 commandments would be blow a shofar on Rosh Hashanah, do a circumcision on the 8th day, rest on the day of Shabbos, let your fields lay empty on the sabbatical year, leave the leftover, the corner of your field, right? All the mitzvahs, we have so many mitzvot, right? Honor your father and your mother, these are all, and one of the mitzvahs is make a lottery. Then the lottery would be the thing, and then you want to make it so perfect. But the mitzvah is not a lottery. The mitzvah is the division of the land of Israel. That's the mitzvah. The lottery is the instrument of how you bring about, how do you get to it? In the best way, we shouldn't have any problems. But if we're not having problems, if once we have a good lottery, and we have a lottery that's certified, because we said earlier it was certified by the high priest, so no one can argue. Why does it have to be that the lottery itself self-certifies itself with a miracle when it's not even, it was never about the lottery? Over here, it's not, the lottery is not the objective. The objective is the division of the land. The lottery is a means to get to the division of the land. So why would you make such a big deal about this lottery, that the lottery has to be perfect with utter perfection? The answer to that is mind-blowing. What's the Rebbe's question? What's the Rebbe's answer? The Rebbe says that in holiness, this is the core of the answer. In holiness, what that means, where God is involved. So even in God's will, even things that are introductory to something coming after it can never be glossed over and looked at as a secondary thing. In other words, there's primary importance, and that's the end goal. And then there are the steps in the way that lead to it. Steps on the way that lead to it, which become of secondary importance and of thirdly importance and of things that are minor importance. That's in human desire, in human projects. So in human projects, anything we do, since we are finite and limited, so we have a certain goal, we have a certain objective. And then there are inherent steps. Sometimes you can't get to this point unless you will go through these. These are the introductory things you need to do. But these are only introductory things, so it's not that important. The main thing is, your final station, the final project, the final product. That's really where it counts. If the leading up points are not that perfect, everybody will say it's okay. It's not that important. But when it comes to God's interests, God is never secondary. So every little piece of that's leading up to it has the entire significance and the entire infinity of God. How important is it? Infinitely important, even though it is a stage leading up to stage, even though it's a medium to reach to something else, the medium itself, because the divine will is also in this step becomes an end to itself, not just a medium. That's the Rebbe's teaching. Whoa. See, that was such a great point that we're getting fireworks for it. The point of it's not a medium, that even mediums are an end unto itself, and you have to treat them as an end to itself. Where do we find something like this? He gives examples to it. By the way, this idea that when it comes to mitzvahs and to Torah, which have inherent value, even preparatory stages and steps towards something, achieve an independent value onto their own. In other words, we can't just see them as a prelude to something else. We have to treat them and recognize them for their own sake, for what they are, as if they are the final thing, and therefore they have absolute significance. This idea is a teaching. The Rebbe really derives this from the Rogatchover. Rabbi Yosef Rosen was his name. He was a genius of geniuses who lived in the early 1900s. Passed away, I think, right before the Second World War, like in 1938, 39. I'm not exactly sure when the Rogatchover passed away. And he was a Talmudic scholar par excellence on a levels that were like generations hadn't seen such a genius. He was just out of this world. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, corresponded with him many times. The Rebbe then was very incognito and very quiet. Yet he corresponded with him. The Rebbe met someone who can think on these genius ways of thinking. So the Rebbe brings this teaching from the Rogatchover that in holiness, a middle step is never just a middle step. What does the Rogatchover say it regarding? We discussed earlier today and in other classes that the Jewish people traveled 42 encampments through the desert. Okay, they were on the way to the land of Israel. They camped, they stopped, they camped, they stopped, they camped, they stopped. And they were going towards the land of Israel. 42 times they camped. And then finally, 40 years, and then finally they came into the land of Israel. The Rogatchover says that every single one of those stations could not be seen just as a resting point. We're just staying here for a small little. See, certain places. One place they stayed for 19 years. Okay, that's like a pretty important place. But other places they stayed only for one night. The law was, and the actual mitzvah was that every single place the Jewish people camped in, even if it was just for 12 hours, they erected, they assembled the entire Mishkan. Assembling the Mishkan was a very, very difficult labor. The Levites did it. It wasn't easy. Now, couldn't God be nice and tell Moshe, listen here, we're just staying here overnight, a couple of hours, the alarm is going to go, the cloud is going to leave, you're going to have to disassemble the whole thing. Not much activity is going to happen here anyways. So, leave these things on the wagons, leave them packed up, sleep tonight. It doesn't even pay to take out, pitch your tents over here. You can sleep under the stars in your sleeping bags because we're ready to go in the morning. What was God playing games with them? No, first of all, they never knew. Okay, you can say the people didn't know. They thought every place they came, they might be there a week. They had no clue. But come on, God, can't God be a little nice to them and let them know we're here for just a few hours? Why did God make them each place set it up? And the answer is because each place was a destination. It wasn't a rest stop. It wasn't like pulling up to the gas station for a minute to refuel. Every single place was a destination. And a destination meaning of eternal value. Forever and ever and ever. Even though then a few hours later, because God is there. It's God's interest. Where God is eternity. So if God's interest is to rest over here, it's as if now it's only for these hours going to manifest, but it's here for eternity. You have to treat it as it's eternity, because in God there's no even the things that come from one to lead to the next. Each one has intrinsic, infinite value. Another example, he says, in the temple itself, you had the courtyard. And the courtyard let you into the sanctuary. So do we consider the outer courtyard just as a passing through? So it doesn't have really an intrinsic holiness, because it's really only a medium. It's a fence to, or no. It itself has infinite importance as the courtyard. In holiness, there's no holiness, which means anything related to Hashem, to God, the 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 all the all the steps taken towards a certain goal, they themselves are the goal. So based on that, the Rebbe says this will also explain to us why the lottery had to be perfect. Because even though the division of the land was only a preparation for settling the land, and the lottery was only a means in order to divide the land, so it's really only a means to a means. But yet, since it is Hashem's will, it becomes of its independent significance, and therefore it calls for absolute and absolute perfection. And therefore you have to give it all you've got, and it has to be so perfect. And since God said with the lottery it should be determined which part is going to belong to which tribe, it had to be done in a way that the lottery itself should fully make that determination without any outside help. That's why the lottery had to talk. Now, we're going to stop over here. I'm just showing you where this is going. What the Rebbe is basically going to do with all of this is going back to the beginning question. We have seconds before the coming of Mashiach. And therefore we're thinking like, what difference does it really make what I'm doing over here in California or what I'm doing over here in this part of the world or that part of the world when, our head and heart and soul is already in the redemption. We're ready for that in our next phase in Jewish history, where all Jews are going to be gathered to the Israel, the temple will come down, God will live amongst us. And meanwhile, now there are some things need to be taken care of over here. Okay, let's get them done and go further. It doesn't work that way. When you are doing even the tiniest little thing right now, it needs to be done like there is no tomorrow and nothing else is happening, and your entire existence, you were born just for this moment to do this little act. And immerse yourself fully in what you're doing. The ultimate living in the moment. Be completely present in what you're doing. This idea the Rebbe is going to develop stronger and stronger, and he's going to show us how that itself is the way we bring Mashiach. Really cool. So basically what we did was we did the first 4 chapters, and tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to continue this talk about living in the moment, going through the next 2 chapters, Be'ezrat Hashem. Thank you for joining.